Welcome to the You're Doing It Wrong podcast. I'm your host, Christian. Today, I want to talk about project management and where projects go wrong, especially technology projects, especially implementing new software. A lot of times, they just massively miss the mark. And we've seen big projects all over the world, especially Oracle and SAP type projects that just get costs overrun by many millions of dollars and hundreds of millions even. And I want to bring that back, where do they go wrong? And we'll explore that today. So today it's just me, but we're going to explore technology projects and where they're going wrong. To me, the first real reason why these projects go wrong is somewhere along the way, they've taken a business objective, a business goal, and turned that into, this software will fix our goal for us, or we need this software as part of the implementation to achieve this goal. But then that gets turned over to a project management, project team, or a technology team to go and implement. And usually they're not given the business goals, or the business goals are kind of just secondary to them implementing a software, right? So the project team just wants to implement the software and walk away, but they don't really care if the business goals have been achieved. And I think that's one, and I touched on that before in another episode, that the goals, business goals matter. And I want to start, I recommend that you start every meeting on a project, especially technology project, rehashing, what are the business objectives that we're trying to achieve? Because all the decisions that you make along the way should be evaluated against those business goals and how well you're accomplishing them. So that as a preface to how to start, and keep those business goals in line. But what does that mean? And when you've started to invest in a technology and you start to see, hang on, actually, maybe this technology isn't as suitable for the business as we thought, or the way that we wanted to implement is not the best. Too many times people just keep going, the objective is to finish implementing the software. We've already bought it. There's no point in trying to start over. We'll look like failures. But I think that's a sign of a good project leader, a good project manager, a leader or director that says, our initial assumptions were wrong, but we still want to meet the business goals. So what is the best way to do that? If that means you find a different technology, different software product to go and implement because that will help you achieve the business goals better, go back and do that. Because at the end of the day, the project is only there to serve the business objectives, not the technology goals. And this is the problem I have a lot with technology people, is that they think that the technology is the goal. It's not, right? And everything that you do from a technology perspective is to support the business and its goals on the business side. So that means that, at the end of the day, you pivot against the software or against the technology if it's not going to work. All right. So don't be afraid. Also, your solutions and your designs should be as much technology agnostic as possible, meaning that, you devise business processes that should be able to be used in different competing products, right? I mean, obviously you may not be able to go directly from product to product, but you want your data in the same sort of structured way to be able to go between technologies, right? So nothing that's so specific and to one vendor, because you may want to change. And again, halfway through the project, you may want to change, but in 5 years you may want to change. And the more you can stay with your business, your business processes, your data, and the technology architecture, the more you can stay technology agnostic, the better you'll be. And it will just allow that flexibility for the business. So, and plus, when you're going halfway through an implementation and you start hitting problems, if you've gone for something that will work across many solutions, well, you're probably then in that sort of best practice. If you're going into edge cases where it only works some of the time, or some software will support that and some won't, well, there's probably better ways to do that, and look at various ways to do that. Plus, always as well, you don't always have to have the perfect solution, right? Some things to be all in software. Some things can be outside of software. We still have manual processes and manual sharing. Not everything has to be integrated. Yes, there's times where integration is great and makes it worthwhile, but you need to do a risk analysis. And I think that's going back to the second thing that people do wrong, is that there's no risk analysis on the project, and a risk to use a certain to go down a certain path, and what is the benefits. So that risk reward, right? So there's benefits sometimes to doing one technology, or just an architecture that you want to do versus another, and some will be really complicated and really hard to implement, but the rewards could be really cool and really great. But on the other hand, if you can achieve 80% of your business goals by doing it in a much simpler fashion, wouldn't the business want to do that if the risk of failure was a lot less? So that's the sort of risk benefit analysis that I don't see happening in most programs. So that would be number 2. So number 1, don't lose sight of the business goals. Number 2, weigh all decisions with the risk versus benefits analysis and risk reward. Number 3, don't lose track of the bigger picture. All right, so don't be just head down. We got to deliver. Right, so look at the bigger vision. And in that, there's communication, right? So you want to be communicating with your project team, but you also got to communicate with your stakeholders. And they want to care more, they care more about, how you're achieving their business goals. So if you can report back to them on that and say, well, hey, the technology or the system implementation portion is moving along, but here's how that is actually tracking against your business goal. And that will open up their eyes to helping you more. Because if you're just stuck in the delivery of the technology, they're not going to care as much. They'll leave you alone. But also they'll kind of go, what's actually happening over there? Is anything good happening? So you want to make that communication with the stakeholders good, and that relationship good. So, do it by talking their business goals and making sure that they understand that the decisions are aligned to that. So bringing those people in, and don't just go, no, we've got to meet a deadline to implement, and we're gonna miss that. work with the business. You fail if you stop looking at the bigger picture, right? So you have to look at that holistic picture of what value you can bring to the business and what value the project will leave at the end. And you'll fail if you delivered a software that no one uses, that no one likes, doesn't meet the business goals and requirements, right? So you may say, well, I've delivered my portion, but you've got to be bigger than just an implementer. You got to look at the big picture and say, no, we're bringing value to this company. Also, when we're talking about technology projects, we can't leave out the technology bit of it. And you want to make sure, especially in 2025, that you've got a technology platform that you're implementing that is going to grow, that is based on recent technology, that is based on something that can incorporate AI, machine learning, whatever, easily, because we know that's going to evolve super quick. So if you're doing an implementation in 2025 and the technology base that the software has been based on is 20 years old, you probably want to look for another solution that's more recent, right? I know that there's a bunch of software out there that still runs fine. It's 20 years old, but we're talking about user interface. We're talking about the speed of systems that are built for the cloud, that are built for that type of working, that they are, their APIs are the latest standards, and that it's super easy to integrate the latest technologies into. That's what you need to be looking at, and challenge the business to say, hang on here, we might be meeting some old business goals, but we know new business goals and objectives are coming. If they don't have AI goals, they will happen in the very near future. So you need to be ahead of the game, ahead of the curve, and making sure now, while that software vendor or technology may still be on its infancy and bringing in AI, you need to make sure that they've got a plan, right? So ask the vendors, see how it can be used in your implementation, so that you can show additional benefits to the business. Right? Again, the project should be business focused, business goals. Right? What value can we bring to the business? My classic example, I was asked to implement OneDrive for a customer, and they could never articulate. Now, while there might have been some business goals, they could never articulate that there was a business goal to actually achieve with this. And I think that probably somewhere along the lines there was, we want to be able to work remotely better at the time. But their view was, we're paying for it with Microsoft Office, and that's not a reason to implement something. There should be a clear business goal and business driver to do it. And again, I'm not saying that they shouldn't have done that, but you need to articulate and work out with the business those goals. So knowing that businesses are going to be looking for efficiencies, looking for ways that they can leverage AI and technology to speed things up. If you're not looking at products that have a clear, defined roadmap of implementing AI or machine learning or some sort of newer technology, then I'd say stay away from it. Look for something else. And if you're in the middle of implementing, you need to go back to the drawing board. Here's one thing I see all the time, especially in large organizations or government projects, where you go, we've actually already paid for this software. And and so we should use it. And again, going back to that business thing, if you the cost of the licenses of software is actually quite small. So if you look at the life cycle of a project and implementing a technology, the actual software cost is minuscule compared to the implementation costs and the people cost around it. So if you change technologies, if you change software vendors, and you have to pay for licenses twice for a year or two, that pales in comparison, especially if the newer product is a better platform, is a newer platform, is a much easier to implement platform. You may save 3, 4, 5 times the actual software cost in people and implementation costs. And I see this all the time. You try to implement this old, complicated system, and people go, yeah, but we got a good deal on the licenses. And it's like, that's because they're making money on professional services. And if you don't see that, you need to look in the mirror, because you're missing the operating model of a lot of these companies. And especially with the big four consulting, they're not going to go and help you implement a really efficient product, right? Because these new cloud products that are built to be able to get into and migrate to within a couple of months, there's no money in it for them. These big players, these big consulting companies, these big technology implementers, right? They're only going to bid on something if it's a massive undertaking that they say, oh, you can't do it on your own, right? So because they know there's millions and millions of dollars in it. And that's where you have to really be careful. Yes, there are systems worth going into that it's going to be complicated, especially if you have a big enterprise, you have lots of integration that needs to happen, you're in healthcare or something, and you're trying to do massive changes. I'm not saying don't do it, but you got to really take this holistic view of the total cost to implement and that return, and making sure that every step of the way that you're putting in the right technology, you're using the right people, you're making the right decisions that's going to achieve the business goals. And again, if you can't achieve all of the business goals, right, make sure that you're highlighting that and saying, you know what, if we were to meet all of them, if we need to customize to meet every single business goal, but if we start customizing things, we might break stuff, and we're breaking or we're going into heavily modified code that this software wasn't really meant to do out of the box. You're going to cause problems down the line, and you have to really go, okay, if we're customizing, does that give us long-term risk? All right. So making sure that the business knows every step of the way, that every time you go and customize, every time you go and make massive customization to a product, that you're either setting yourself up for a long, hard slog with that product where you're never going to be able to move away from it, or even upgrade it sometimes to the latest version, because you might break stuff, or you're just constantly in that testing, testing every single upgrade to make sure that it's not broken, and that's not a fun cycle for the BAU people. So once the project team is left, right, it's up to the BAU people to make sure they test all the releases, and they're not going to want to do that, right? They're not going to want to every however many months, do all that testing all the time. So you have to think about what it's like for those people that's going to be actually operating this, and things that take lots of upkeep. Just to, lots of administrative overhead will not be a good outcome, I think, for the business, right? So they're going to hate it the technology team's going to hate it. The business team, if they have to spend a lot of time on maintaining it, is going to hate it. And so in the end, you might have achieved some business goals as well, but it's got to be easily maintained. It's got to be, again, work on that technology agnostic view where in case, the software realm changes or a vendor has a bankruptcy and no longer can support, that application, you've got the ability to move around. 2025 software is, getting better, but it's a huge difference from where it was 20 years ago. So, the cloud architectures and programming languages and all that has evolved and changed at a massive rate. So go with something that's built for this cloud native view. And I hope you've enjoyed today. Please pop some questions and comments down below, and we'll have some guests on the next episode. But thanks for your time.